without further ado, Elizabeth and the Out of Control Garden by Arthur Jensen, Kai, Lola, and Sydney. Elizabeth and her older brother Tom were walking home from school past Mrs. McIntosh's very tall fence. Tom told his sister that the other kids at school were saying Miss McIntosh was growing race cars and refrigerators and porcupines. Elizabeth thought her brother was silly. Elizabeth wondered if any cats were growing in Miss McIntosh's garden. She had always wanted a pet cat. Elizabeth decided she had to find out what was growing in Miss McIntosh's garden that very night. So when everyone was asleep, she crept down the creaky stairs very carefully in her green pajamas. Creak, creak, creak. Elizabeth opened her front door very slowly. Creak. Then she ran down the street. Her slippers slapped the sidewalk. Flap, 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 flap. When she got to Mrs. McIntosh's very tall fence, Elizabeth realized she didn't have a plan. The fence was too tall to climb, and she didn't have a chainsaw. Elizabeth leaned on the fence to think, and a loose part of the fence, whoop, it flipped up, and she fell right into Mrs. McIntosh's backyard. There was just enough moonlight. Elizabeth could certainly see some strange shapes. Just ahead, something looked like a cat. Elizabeth was so excited. She crawled a little closer and she heard grrr. Elizabeth looked up and she saw cheetahs growing on vines. Wrong sort of cat, she thought. Elizabeth got scared and she ran away. The cheetahs chased Elizabeth with their long vine tails, flicking around wildly. Near the back porch, Elizabeth turned suddenly, and the cheetahs tried to follow, but oh, no, they tripped on their tails and tumbled into Mrs. McIntosh's house. They crashed, they begged, they danced on the piano. Elizabeth could hear terrible music inside. Elizabeth hid in the corner right next to the house, and it got quiet. And then she felt a tickle on her ear, and then on her neck, and she looked up and saw giant pairs of purple underwear hanging from the branches of the door. One of the pairs of underwear fell right down on her face. Elizabeth got scared and she ran away. She couldn't see where she was going, and soon she tripped on a rock and landed flat on her face in some garden dirt. Her face wrapped in underwear, lying face down in dirt, Elizabeth thought she heard whispering voices. She sat up and pulled the giant purple underwear down off her face, and she wore it like a dress. She looked at the book flowers in front of her. The book flowers were whispering, "Read me, read me, read me." So Elizabeth did read them, and as she read, the words, they sparkled. They turned into candy, and they fell off the pages into Elizabeth's hands. She tasted them. Yum, just like Pez. And that's when Elizabeth heard the clanking and whirring behind her. She turned to see a bright pink robot dog. "Lulu has called Master," the robot dog said. Elizabeth looked towards the house, and she saw Mrs. McIntosh coming down the porch steps. "Well, what are you doing here, my dear?" she asked. I heard about your strange garden," said Elizabeth. I was looking for a pet cat." "Well, don't be silly, dear," said Mrs. McIntosh. "Cat season isn't until June." And in June, Miss McIntosh invited Elizabeth over, and they planted cat tree seeds. They also planted gecko bush bulbs for her brother, Tom. Miss McIntosh, she sure was a kind woman, but she definitely had one out-of-control garden. The end. Do you guys like that one?